Good morning. Good morning or afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the next session of the 23rd Annual Northwest Library Interloan and Resource Sharing Conference. Today's date is September 21st, 2023. This session is titled Writing It All Down, the Evolution of Future-Proofing the Library, and will be presented by Katie DeVet. There we go, now it's scrolling. My name is Libby, and I'll be the convener for the session. This session is being recorded with permission from the presenters. Because they retain the copyright to the information they are presenting, they may choose to request its removal from public viewing in the future by written request to NWILL. However, at this time, it is planned that recordings will be made available once captions have been added. Attendees will be notified when recordings are available. To turn live captioning on, click the CC link at the bottom of the screen and select Show Subtitles. If you have a question during the session, a question for the presenter during the session, please use the Q&A function in Whova, and I will pose these to the presenter at the end of their presentation. We will not be monitoring the chat for questions. Caveat, if it's a tech question, please do put it in chat. Questions for Katie, put in Q&A. When the presentation ends, please complete the post-session survey in Whova, located on the conference homepage and the session chat. I'll drop that there in just a second. The NWILL and presenters appreciate and use your feedback. On that note, I will turn the session over to Katie.
Hello, and welcome to Writing It All Down, the Evolution of Future-Proofing Library Workflows. I am Dr. Katie DeVet. I am the resource sharing librarian at Texas Tech University, and I oversee the document delivery office. Document delivery for us includes document delivery, interlibrary loan, and course reserves. So I'm now going to turn on my slides and off my camera. There we go. All right, I love this quote so much. As I was sitting down to codify my thoughts on how it is we do workflow documentation, this quote from Mythbusters kept running through my head. Remember, kids, the only difference between screwing around and science is writing it down. Adam Savage has been very honest since then that the quote was actually from a colleague that he was more than happy to give credit. I feel like this quote kind of embodies a lot of what we do in libraries, especially in academic libraries. There's a running line in neighboring departments of, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen for annual evals and statistics. Within our workflows, this is even more important. This past spring, I was speaking with colleagues at Rice who commented that they hadn't onboarded new staff in years and weren't entirely sure they knew how. All of their staff could measure their longevity in decades, and much of their workflow was wrapped up in that institutional memory. Some of you may have experienced situations recently like our Access Services Department, when a staff member of 40+ years retired, and we are still finding things 2 years later that she had done quietly and never written down. In my department, we've had the opposite issue. I've been on 16 hiring committees in 9 years, and most of those people directly reported to me. We've had to find ways to ensure the high standards we set for efficiency and turnaround time when we might have a whole new staff in only a few years. So to give you all some context, some information about Texas Tech. Often considered a cultural center of West Texas, Lubbock is largely known for very few things. A wide, flat horizon punctuated by strong winds, cotton as far as the eye can see, Buddy Holly, and Texas Tech University. Texas Tech was founded in West Texas in 1923 and is currently celebrating its centennial year. A large doctorate granting institution, Texas Tech has been recognized as an institution with very high research activity by the Carnegie Classification of Institutions of Higher Education. The Texas Tech University Libraries is a member of the Association of Research Libraries and the Greater Western Library Alliance, along with several other consortia. We have 5 libraries across campus: the main library in the center of campus, the architectural library, the law library, the Peters Family Legacy Library, and the Southwest Collection or Special Collections Library. In 2010, Texas Tech was one of the institutions that made the goal to reach 40,000 students by 2020 and has succeeded in that. Working from nearly 37,000 FTE in FY 2017, enrollment hit 40,000 in 2020 and has stayed relatively stable, with 40,528 FTE in fall 2022, with just over 32,000 undergraduates, 7,000 graduates, and just shy of 600 students between our law and vet schools. For those of you working in smaller communities, Texas Tech may very well be larger than the town you live in. It is definitely larger than the town I come from. So to support the needs of this community, research and otherwise, the Document Delivery Office has a team of staff working. We are a part of User-Centered Services, and the department is overseen by a resource sharing librarian, while day-to-day operations are managed by a staff supervisor currently ranked at unit manager. 5 FTE staff handle direct request processing with 2 on borrowing, 1 document delivery, and 2 lending. At present, one of our lending staff doubles on course reserves at relevant times of the year. At our peak volume pre-COVID, we processed over 100,000 requests a year and hovered around 100,000 until the world shut down. Since then, much like many of you, our numbers have been down, but they seem to be steadily on the rise. Within this, the staff supervisor position tends to have longevity. The last person was in that position for about 10 years, and the one before that was about 20. Library associates, on the other hand, tend to be more of an entry-level position. These full-time staff are hired with research expertise in mind and are often working on graduate programs, tending to stay 3 to 5 years before moving on to the next chapter of their lives. Most years in the last 10, this has resulted in 1 to 2 staff hired per year, with FY 2022 as an exception to this. We had 2 staff finish library school in the spring of 2020 who delayed the job search and left us in spring 2022, followed by 2 staff members finding dream positions, and then the last finishing a degree in public health and taking a position with the city. We had full staff turnover that year. Our student assistants often stay with us until graduation, but availability of courses changes within these coursework. This often results in 3 to 7 new student assistants hired every semester. To help continue expectations and the through line of knowledge, we have 4 different types of documents to help maintain our workflow. So the first one that you see is our document delivery policies, or DDPs. These are higher level policies specific to FTE staff and workflows related to their work, and do not include step-by-step instructions to complete tasks. These are typically written by the resource sharing librarian and unit manager with the intent of establishing expectations and recording institutional memory. They are primarily used for onboarding and staff cross-training, but have the added benefit of serving as a resource to return to as needed. With these and all of the documents that follow, staff are referred to by position rather than names in order to help future-proof the document should someone leave or change positions. Similarly, our document delivery student policies, or DDSPs, are higher level policies for our student assistants. These are also written by the resource sharing librarian and unit manager, but are primarily a resource for our frontline staff rather than the students themselves. While the students directly report to the unit manager, the library associates assist with the supervision and training of student assistants throughout their workflow, often training on tasks related to their position. For example, one of our lending staff often trains on packaging FedEx, while one of the borrowing staff trains on preparing incoming interlibrary loan books for delivery or pickup. The students receive this information in direct face-to-face training most of the time. This is supplemented by checklists, which we will discuss in a moment. Probably the most robust section of our documentation is our document delivery step-by-steps. They are likely also the most used documents of this set. They are written by frontline staff, codifying their own daily tasks and workflows, and are edited and approved by the unit manager and resource sharing librarian before being published. These assume that the reader has never done the task in question and are largely used for onboarding and staff training. As all library associates are cross-trained on other units, it also serves as reference for tasks they may not complete every day, or workflows that are cyclical, like course reserves or billing. These follow what some call the peanut butter and jelly approach to explanation, following the activity that many of us may have done in elementary school. For context, for those of you who may not have, in this activity, a teacher has a class instructor on how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, following the instructions exactly as they are given. Usually the students will begin along the lines of, put the peanut butter on the bread, and she will then stack a full closed jar of peanut butter on top of either a wrapped loaf of bread or an uncut loaf of bread, squishing it. And eventually they figure out down the line that you have to be very specific and say, open the bag of bread, take out 2 slices of bread, set the slices of bread on the table, like that. These documents are designed so that ideally staff from other departments could step in and follow along if they were needed to complete the task in question. Our document delivery checklists are somewhat similar to step-by-steps, but they are much more bare bones in scope. These are also written by our frontline staff, but about tasks that they train student assistants on, and are primarily a resource for students completing their day-to-day work. They are laminated and posted in relevant work areas, and also follow the peanut butter and jelly approach to explanation. The ideal for these documents is to be able to have student assistants or staff from other areas of the library be able to step in and help if needed. So how does all of this work? These 4 types of documentation work together to create our workflow documentation. With this, all of our documents were initially stored in an internal SharePoint site accessible by all document delivery staff. DDPs and step-by-steps govern staff workflows in varying detail, while DDSPs and checklists govern student assistant workflows in varying detail. So there's a lot of different places that people can look. These new documents have been added to the collections as needs arise. For example, in FY 2017, the course reserves workflow shifted from access services to document delivery to better align with existing workflows and service needs. This resulted in documentation for a whole new set of workflows being needed. Prior to the move, course reserves workflows were conveyed verbally and followed to varying levels of success by staff who may or may not remember the details of the process. Similarly, in fall of 2019, impending building maintenance spurred the codification of a policy on operating from an alternate site. It has long been understood that document delivery is what our university calls mission critical. That is, if the library itself falls off the face of the earth, DocDel finds computers and an internet connection and keeps going. This DDP was the first time this had been deliberately written down and later became the basis for our plan in pandemic closure. In addition to this, existing step-by-steps are reviewed by staff moving to other positions to make sure institutional knowledge is not lost in the transition. Older versions of all of these documents are also maintained in shared storage should it be needed. As we all had to do, spring 2020 closures brought creativity to the workflow. With this, staff supervisors in what would become user-centered services began reviewing and editing workflow documentation while working remotely. To aid this, we used MindManager mapping in conjunction with the Access Services Department to give us a way to make visual connections between documentation types and departments. This image and the 2 that will follow are excerpts from the document delivery section of that original 2020 map. As you can see, each unit splits into DDPs and step-by-steps with related documents linked and documents that need editing marked. Awaiting loan request processing on this particular screen grab is in orange because at the time we were looking at sunsetting that because of the way our routing rules work behind the scenes. Awaiting loan request processing almost never shows up. Most of the rest of these you probably recognize if you were an Iliad library. We use a lot of the same terminology from our queues. Some of it we've created locally, like awaiting GWILA processing. That is a local routing rule to make it work better for us. This mapping through MindManager allowed for critical assessment of our workflow overlap and gaps in the documentation, while leaving space and flexibility to add as needed. MindManager also allows you to code visually by icon, color, emoji, and style. Most of the existing documentation when we started the project involves services that were offered by document delivery. You don't always realize just how much it is you do until you write it all down. We initially tried to determine whether categories could be collapsed or combined, but eventually decided they were all actually separate services. As you can see in this, we've got a couple that were marked as forthcoming. Those were areas where we realized that we hadn't actually written some of the policies that we were following. The campus delivery ones was in process when it started, when this particular map started, which is why it has a number. A lot of the other things, again, you might recognize from your own workflows, from different areas that you generally see in your own work. So additional documentation that was not seen in any of these screenshots relates to staff expectations, leave time, and staff development. Assessment of these written and unspoken policies is a perpetual project. We are still finding things that we haven't actually written down yet. While many of the noted gaps have since been filled, early return to face-to-face affected our ability to complete the mapping project as planned. As DocDel is mission critical, we were in the office through the end of March 2020 and returned to the office in the first week of June 2020. As many of you experienced, that catch-up was not a quick thing, and then it was immediately into the cycle of the school year. While MindManager allowed us to organize our thoughts, it did not change our storage paths. Recently, the Texas Tech instant of locally hosted SharePoint was sunsetting, and all library sites were being transitioned into Microsoft Teams. This has allowed us to organize files into channels to make ease of access more straightforward for staff. If you haven't used it before, the Teams interface allows for more access customization than SharePoint, and team owners can granularly manage access and editability of both members and guests, even choosing which specific members can access different documents and channels. In this screenshot, for example, the supervision channels you see with blocks next to them are restricted to myself, our unit manager, and our associate dean. Teams overall allows for the base functionality that we had before with SharePoint with now additional options. There are ways that you can set this up so that the frontline staff can read everything that's there but can't change it. So you can't have someone accidentally change policies or accidentally delete part of something, which has been an issue with different teams in the past. We are currently about 9 months into using Teams for this purpose, and we are still working on how to customize it best to fill our needs. There are dozens of apps available to customize the Teams experience to fill a wide variety of needs. While the DocDel instance is fairly straightforward, we are investigating other options. Currently, we organize related channels to centralize different document types and unit needs. We are beginning to use embedded OneNote notebooks and files to centralize brainstorming for department-wide projects and utilize a centralized break and appointment calendar for ease of access. Teams also serves as a centralized point of storage for documents like departmental workshop slide decks, frequently printed items, and the link that we use where other libraries can directly request through us. As we move forward, our existing documentation is currently being reassessed, and the last full assessment was in fall of 2020. MindManager mapping in connection with access services and the overarching user-centered services continues, and this includes determining and linking global policies, as well as where and how department policies connect to each other. Additionally, as our current crew of staff are all at or approaching 2 years of service, we are working to determine where gaps in knowledge currently exist and where those documentation gaps may also be filled. Related to this, we are actively in the process of reassessing the modality we use for training and our DDSPs, our student policies. And we are working to determine whether those needs are being filled. We may soon be supplementing our student training policies with video or other media, but we are also working to determine what the best path and access for this is. As it currently stands, the student assistants at Texas Tech do not have access to Teams. So we're looking at how we can create a resource that students can revisit when they need to, where they need to, regardless of where their workflow is. One of the options that we are currently looking at using is our learning management system, which at present at Texas Tech is in Blackboard. If this is something you are looking at doing yourself, rather than advice, it's more questions to ask yourself. As it currently stands, if you or your staff were out tomorrow, what is your plan? If a staff member leaves or retires, how do you pass that knowledge on? How do you make sure you didn't miss any of it? What workflows do you do infrequently? How do your staff members remember what it is that you do? And what centralized access points does your institution have? What places do you know are going to be continuously available for everyone, no matter their work modality, no matter their designated workspace, no matter what branch library they're at? What's going to work for you? So with this, thank you so much for your time. This is really where our conversation begins, so we can work together as a resource sharing community to build each other up. The solutions we have at Texas Tech aren't perfect, and we're still developing them, but they work for us. We are always working on ways to improve what it is we do and how we do it. And I invite you to join the conversation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Katie. That was an excellent presentation. We do have a few Q&As from the audience. I'll read them. Can you guys hear me okay? Yes, good. Okay, first question. The standard operating procedures manual I've been working on has links to required templates for emails, patron notes, etc., plus links to all of the spreadsheets and such that we use for record keeping. Is there a way to run a document with multiple links through an automatic program that checks the viability of links so we don't have dead ones with a bit of regular maintenance?
That is a fantastic question. I don't know of anything that does that automatically. What we do locally, especially moving from SharePoint to Teams, is that we have file structure within the shared storage that is very, very clear and very, very well labeled, so that you can go in and find the thing that you need the way it is searched, the way you need it to. The other thing that you can do that our colleagues in Access Services have had more luck with, that we are still working on implementing in Teams, is that you can link within Teams to those documents if they're in Office 365. So there are ways that you can have shortcuts within your OneNote notebook, for example, that will go to your policy and then go to the step-by-step, all within the same platform that has back-end linkage. But to the best of my knowledge, I don't know of an automated way to do it. We just like set calendar reminders and double check that things still work.
Okay. Next question. One question that I have been struggling with is how to include visual information in our guidelines, such as screenshots or short video tutorials. Do you find visual aids are helpful, or do you include them at all?
Visual aids are absolutely helpful. Some of it depends on what kind of policy or procedure it is. Some of the screenshots that you saw, for example, like the triaging, awaiting borrowing request processing, that one is a lot of text on the first page, because most of what you're doing, and many of you know this, first thing on a Monday morning, it's figuring out what can I do quickly, what needs to be moved where, what's going to take my time, and I need to look at it later. Other things like our remote storage policies have actual photos, because going out to remote storage involves maps. It involves key structure for how it works out at our remote storage facility, because we don't have staff out there. We're sending people out without that stuff, where to find things, where all of the light switches and stuff should be, which you don't have to think about on the main site. Some of the step-by-steps also have screen caps from Iliad that have things circled and arrows and all of that fun stuff, so that it's very, very clear. This is the thing you need to do first. This is the thing you need to do second. This is how it goes next. We use the embedded snipping tool in Windows a lot to create those. There are also other ways you can do it depending on what you have. You can do the old school print screen. You can create some of the images manually if that's what works better for you. And there are also some ways that you can shrink those files so they don't take up as much space. Our RMS one, the original file, took an unreasonable amount of space because it was all phone pictures, and it was like 8 pixels each, and it was a lot.
Thank you. This is a question for you and for everybody. Does anyone have a procedures manual they are willing to share? We use Iliad and Alma. And there are 2 replies to it. Oregon State University has given a link for a wiki. And then Susan said that we use Teams too. So yes, definitely there's a call out for a procedures manual for Iliad and Alma.
I would be happy to talk to people about how to best make things work for them. The way we use Iliad involves a lot of routing rules. We're Iliad power users. So our routing rule setup may not work for you, but I would be happy to help you figure out how to make it work.
Thank you. How much time do you spend on documentation per week?
Every week, not a ton, because for the most part, it runs itself when we're doing major assessments most of the week. The last time I did a complete assessment, basically every moment of the day that I wasn't actively training or answering somebody's question, I was working on documentation. This is why the full assessments don't happen very often, because it's a lot of nitty-gritty, going step by step, making sure that the interface hasn't changed, that the workflow hasn't changed, that somebody hasn't changed what they're doing in the back end when I wasn't looking, and all of that fun stuff.
Are there any templates for workflows you would recommend to get somebody started?
Sure. We kind of have local templates that I could share if people are interested. It's mostly setting it up like you saw in some of those screen grabs, where you set up a block of the kinds of information you need. So what the number of the policy is, what the title of the policy is, basically what the thing is about, who needs to read it. And then you have an explanation of what it is, saying, okay, here's the basic stuff you need to know. And then it moves into the step-by-step or the actual policy itself. So we have a basic overall, everything matches within that is now being used in other departments in our library. It's MindManager, an app that can be downloaded. Sorry, I can see that one.
Oh, okay, go for it.
MindManager is absolutely an app that can be downloaded. It does require a subscription. It was originally, much like all of our software, something that had to be downloaded onto a specific computer. In the last year, they've moved it to cloud-based storage. So if you have access to the software, you can use it and or download it from anywhere. So I have access to both the cloud-based on my computer, and I have the local app on my laptop. It's really helpful. It's the user interface is a little confusing at first, but they've got some really great documentation and some excellent webinars, which you should absolutely go to if this is something you want to do.
A related question to 2 questions ago. Are there any templates for workflows you would recommend to get someone started?
Universal workflows, I don't know. Usually we figure out what works for us and figure out, okay, well, this is the thing that we need answered, and this is how we're going to make it work from here.
Have you considered using LibGuides for students to access their workflows as they need it? At ENMU, did I get that right? Yes. We are working to create a LibGuides for our circulation and ILL workers.
Sure, we haven't used LibGuides in that way as of yet. We've been looking at Blackboard because that way we can control access to who can see it. The way our instance of the LMS works, you can set up non-course specific shells where you can input specific people. So it could be part of our onboarding process where we can input all of those particular students and our current staff so they can see what's in there. You can also within Blackboard assign different parts of the training. So say you have a new person, you can say, okay, you need to go through the shelving training and the customer service training and the thing about how to check out DMS equipment or whatever your needs are. You can also see who's seen what, which you can't do with LibGuides. So you can keep track of, okay, this person's read through all of these things, this one's missing that one. And then once they leave and they don't necessarily need access, you can take them out. That's why we're thinking Blackboard.
The next question is about, they loved the last slide of your presentation. How can we access the recording so that I can make sure I noted everything in that what to ask yourself checklist? Well,
sure. I can put that slide back up real fast if you would like.
Sure.
And also after the conference, I think Libby's got some information on how we can access recordings.
Yeah, I think that it'll take a little while because we need to actually make sure that we get the subtitles correct. We're going to go through and do that. It takes a very short amount of time and we will let you know when they're available. But that's definitely part of the process. I'll keep on asking questions while that's up.
Sure.
We use Tapasa and Alma. Has anyone created a manual for this combination?
We don't use Tapasa. I haven't created that. That would be a great question for the community if folks have thoughts in the chat. I think some of the basic ideas can probably translate to it.
Yeah. Can you give me some suggestions for getting more people in our organization to buy into teams?
Ooh.
That's a great question.
That is a fantastic question. So what happened with us, we were not looking to use Teams. When was that? A few years ago, probably shortly before 2020, we moved from everybody having to use the hard disk to download Windows to shifting everybody over to Office 365. It was not a great transition. It was a pretty clunky transition. There are a lot of pieces of it that we don't really use. There are some pieces of it that we don't use well, and there are some pieces that just don't work for what we needed. We initially resisted Teams, but when they started sunsetting our locally servered SharePoint, basically we got told, here is the option that you have. Some of the things that are really nice about it are the interactivity of it. There is a lot of customization you can do. Like I said, our colleagues in Access Services have it very, very highly customized. They have a large staff. They have a lot of people who need to access a lot of knowledge, and they need to know it's not going to accidentally get changed along the lines. So they've gone in the back end and done heavy amounts of customization so that each different subset of the staff, between the day staff and the night staff and the swing staff, have access to different portions of the information, can edit different parts of it, and everybody can read their FAQs and their basic information and all of that fun stuff. They also have moved to having their end of day reports in there. So they have a running collaborative file where they work together on, here's the current state of the library. We haven't gone that far, but there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with it.
We're currently using LMS software for ILL that's effectively broken because we don't have the budget to install search and functionality parts. How can we future-proof software workflow instructions that are like the digital equivalent of, don't step on that third staircase step, it's broken? I think we all know that feeling.
The wording of that question is amazing, and I love it so much. I hate that this is your life, but I love that question so much. Things that you can do to future-proof software workflow instructions. We've had to do this some. We switched ILS in 2015. So after I had started doing all of this, we switched to a different ILS and had to basically rewrite half the stuff. So what we have changed some things to is we don't necessarily give specifics on the software if it's something we think might change. We'll tend more towards kind of like we've done with the staff. With the staff, we say this needs to be approved by the resource sharing librarian, or when in doubt, ask the unit manager or whatever. We take a similar approach with some of our software that might change and say something along the lines of, check this out in this ILS and make sure that find general ways to say the thing that you need to do, be as specific as you can, but find the ways to work around that third step. Some of it's a little bit easier if you can get someone else to work through it with you. That's one of our other next steps, is we're going to be working with other librarians and staff within the library and having them follow our step-by-steps and see what happens, so we can see where the holes are in our actual instructions. If you can get somebody who's never checked out a book before to follow your instructions and successfully check out a book, then you've won. So I think it's a little bit like that, and a little bit, if you do change systems, making sure you go in and change your documentation.
Okay. Would you talk more about the tasks your student workers do? Do you have different versions of the manual for students and permanent staff?
Sure. As you saw, we have different documentation for both sets. We have document delivery policies and step-by-steps that are for staff workflows. And then we have our document delivery student policies and checklists for our students. Our students pull books, they move things around the library, they scan book chapters and articles, they package things to be shipped to our distance patrons into libraries literally around the world, they shelve local pickup things, they drive the golf cart and deliver things to departmental offices and our branch libraries. Sometimes they do a little bit of light cleaning or maintenance on the carts, those time filler things. And they do definitely have separate instructions than what we give the staff. The staff is doing all of the nuts and bolts in Iliad. They've got more of the back end in Alma. They have more permissions and more things that they can do and things that they can approve than the students do. The students also check books in and out and answer basic questions, and they're instructed to get a staff member if they don't know.
We use Tapasa and Folio. Has anyone created a manual to use? So that would be both for you and the audience. Tapasa and Folio.
That sounds like a great opportunity for the Folio community. I know a few folks that are switching to Folio. I have not looked into it too far, but.
So, Katie.
Yes.
When are you starting your own company to help others do documentation?
I have not started my own company to help others do documentation, but if people are interested in help and want to figure out how I can help them, I wouldn't be against scheduling a conversation and seeing what we can do. I won't write it for you, but I'll help you figure out how to do it yourself.
How often are the checklists used by student workers?
That's a great question. It depends on what the thing is and how long the student assistant has worked for us. For the students who are approaching graduation, who've worked for us for 3 or 4 years, they don't look at those anymore, basically ever. For our brand new students, the packaging ones get used constantly. They're always pulling them off the wall and setting them next to whatever it is that they're packaging, following down the line. Some of them will get a dry erase marker out and check it off. We've got some course reserves, checkout policies that are on the wall for both our students and access services. Those get used fairly regularly, but it's cyclical, just like course reserves is. So the beginning of the semester, they see a lot of use and then people remember how it works and they stop looking at it.
That is all of our questions, unless something snuck in the last 2 seconds, which it didn't. Okay. Sorry, guys, I have multiple tabs. You know how that works.
Hey, I've got multiple tabs and multiple screens, so.
So NWILL thanks everyone for attending the session titled "The Thing About Documenting in Your Workplace I Can't Think of the Full Title of," because I'm really that professional. Please take the post-conference survey. The link can be found in chat, and I'm going to drop it again there right now. It does help both the presenters and the committee know how we can improve things for next time. Additionally, if you have enjoyed this session and want to continue the conversation, you can continue to use the chat with this session or move over to the community section of Whova, where you can use the chat boards or create a virtual meetup. And if I may put in my 2 cents, considering all of the talk about formats and instructions, it's definitely something worth doing in chat or the community. You guys could help each other out. I approve. And that is it for us. Have a great day, everyone. See you in the afternoon sessions.
Awesome. Enjoy your afternoon.
Bye.